Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to the Arise to Success show, where we aim to highlight inspiring individuals and their journeys to success. I'm your host on the show. My name is Jihad. Dear listeners, today's show is pre recorded, so we won't be able to take any questions, but please feel free to text or WhatsApp your thoughts about the show on 0779 481822, or you can also comment on Facebook. So our guest today is Nabeel Shariff, who's the director of the GMW Network, a platform designed to bring together Muslim change makers looking to collaborate and innovate for the betterment of humanity. Nabeel has been in the role since its launch, having previously been the global head of marketing at LaunchGood, who the GMW is powered by. Nabeel spent the 2010s building his own business, including Rihala.com, spreading the concept of Muslim friendly travel experiences, and has been passionate about the growth of the Islamic economy for the past 15 years, mashallah. Nabil would like our dear listeners to leave the conversation today feeling empowered to be change makers themselves. The GMW is a special collection of people. However, Nabil believes it's simply because of their common value alignment, basing their everyday lives on Islamic principles, including empathy, transparency, and building great ideas with ihsan. They will draw upon stories of attendees of GMW, their journey, and how they are making an impact on the world. Nabil, so lovely to have you with us today, and Jazakallah khair for accepting my invite to join us for the Arise to Success show. How are you doing, Nabil?
No, thank you very much, and pleasure to be here. And as living in and around the area for quite a while, I've been listening to Inspire FM, and you guys do a great job. So, inshallah,
Jazakallah.
long may it continue.
Ameen. Jazakallah khair. So, Nabil, perhaps if we start by talking a little bit about when the GMW network started and what motivated you to start it.
So, as you mentioned, GMW is powered by LaunchGood, and if anybody hasn't come across LaunchGood before, we're a global crowdfunding platform that is powered by Muslims, for Muslims. Alhamdulillah, we just turned 10 years old this year. We've just crossed over $500 million donations raised and funds raised on the platform. And it started from very humble beginnings, and it's a testimony to how GMW is actually forming as well. We decided last year that we were going to take the whole team. We're a fully remote team at LaunchGood. Everybody from Los Angeles to Sydney, and we don't get to meet up very often. So we decided that we will take the whole team to Istanbul, and we'll convene in Istanbul, and we'll spend a week there. Working together, co-working in a space. And myself and Chris Blovelt, the CEO, we said, well, why don't we just open it out to anybody? We've got the co-working space, we've got like another 50 seats. Why don't we just open it out and say, whoever is in Istanbul or wants to come to Istanbul, come and work with us. And that's where the idea started. And as you can see, GMW stands for Global Muslim Location. So back in June 2022, we treat it like a workation. Come out, work, see Istanbul, be inspired by the city. Obviously, it's a very historic city. But what we didn't realize is that people were coming out of COVID, and there was this need or want to connect with other Muslims face to face. 2 years of virtual meetings, 2 years of Zoom calls. We had enough. So. When people got together, we found that there was this spark, which we didn't anticipate. And we suddenly saw people, sharing their ideas, sharing what they've been working on during lockdown, creating these alliances and partnerships and, saying, look, you're a developer and, I'm a designer. Why don't we do something together? And, that sort of camaraderie within the Ummah is something that's always been there. And I think that GMW Istanbul was just a catalyst for more of that to happen. And, inshallah, long may it continue.
Mashallah, that's amazing. So from where it started to where it is now, there seems to be quite a lot has happened, mashallah, right?
It has. We've just finished GMW Doha, which is our first flagship event. We held it at Education City, which is a 12 square kilometer campus located just on the outskirts of Doha city itself. It's the home to the Qatar Foundation as well. And alhamdulillah, it's an incredible campus, and we had 290 odd people have a touch point, with GMW Doha, and the feedback has been phenomenal. And compared to where we, like you said, where we started in Istanbul to what we are now, it's all driven by the community. It's all driven by GMW attendees. We have this analogy at LaunchGood that LaunchGood was built on the basis that we're providing the platform, but without the donors, without the campaign creators, without the people that are going out there and doing the work in terms of delivering support to those in need, LaunchGood's nothing. And in the same way, GMW is exactly the same. We're simply providing this space for people, but without the people, without the entrepreneurs, without the designers, without the partners, without people's intentions to come and share and develop and grow, we're nothing. So alhamdulillah, we firmly believe that GMW is powered by the people, and we want to build it for the people too.
MashaAllah, that's amazing. So I'm wondering here, when you first started the idea, did you ever think it's going to get that far, or did you even plan for it to get where it is now?
Even in the summer, I was sort of mentioning this at different events throughout the summer, and Chris actually mentioned it in Istanbul, and I've got him on video for this. And he literally said, like, we're just running with it. Like, we don't know where this is going. And sometimes you don't need to know where something is going for it to be impactful. What we believe is that, this year it's an MVP for us. We've been experimenting, we've been trying different things. Some things have worked, some things haven't. But we take that feedback on. And again, we're still at a position now, we're going into 2024. We've got a much better idea, of where GMW is heading. But ultimately, this is something that we're not building for just 2023. We're building this for the next 10 years. The next generation of Muslim ideas and Muslim change makers, is 10 years in the future and 20 years in the future. When we started our business, I'm saying me, Chris, Shazad, and Muz. We all sort of started in the early 2010s, and we didn't have that structure. We didn't have that support. We didn't have mentors. We didn't have access to funding. We didn't have, that many spaces that we can actually meet up with. You could probably count them on your hands, really, the number of spaces where Muslims can collaborate. GIES in Dubai was probably, one of the catalysts, for us to meet. And a lot of us actually met. At that conference. A couple of years later, we had the AMCC conference in New York. Concordia, they do some great stuff as well. So, all of these spaces are really important, and there's not just a one size fits all. And I think with GMW, we want to almost revive a lot of those experiences. We want them to stay there and make sure that there is a platform for them to thrive as well.
Yeah, mashallah, that's amazing, mashallah. And when you said that, you just started, and even Chris was saying, we don't know where this is going to go. I interviewed the founder of, what is it called? Amazing. I don't know if you come across it, which is the platform for Muslim services. So he was saying the same thing. When he first started, he just wanted something for the Muslims, and he didn't know where it was going. And mashallah, now he said next in January he's going to be going, to the US, and then there are plans in Australia and other places as well, mashallah. So sometimes we don't know where the idea is going. It's just about making a start and having that reliance on Allah, taking action, having that reliance on Allah. I always use that example of tying your camel and putting tawakkul on Allah. So sometimes, we may not have so much of a big idea, but it's just about starting somewhere, and you never know where this is going, and making dua, inshallah, and going with the going ahead with it, putting your tawakkul on Allah. So mashallah.
Sure. And there's so many of those examples. Like, there's so many people that have been in industry. They've, worked either in financial services, they've worked with big tech developers, they've work with big agencies, and they want to give back. Like, they want to do something for the ummah, and they want to do something that is going to leave a legacy. A lot of them, want to do that. A lot of them just want to apply their skill set, into providing Muslim services and Muslim infrastructure. And look, the last 8 weeks have been really difficult, for obviously,
Yeah.
the people in Gaza and the people in Palestine. But for us, we're not there, and we feel utterly helpless. And the one thing in Doha that we saw is everybody's coming together, and there is a unity around it. There's a unity to improve the lives of others, and I think people are doing that through the skills that they're learning, and developing these great platforms.
Yeah, mashallah. And, as important it is, the mashallah, the work that you're doing in general for the Muslim Ummah, I feel this time, as you mentioned, it's much more important for us to uplift the Ummah altogether, inshallah, so that we rise again, just like what the Sahabas did at the Prophet's time as well, inshallah, and even the Khalifas and so on. So may Allah, inshallah, make us amongst those who work together to uplift the Ummah. That unity is so important, mashallah. And I'm just going to quickly just remind our dear listeners, just in case anybody joined a bit later, is that we have Nabeel Shariff with us today on the show, who's the director of the GMW Network, which is a platform designed to bring together Muslim change makers looking to collaborate and innovate for the betterment of the humanity. Nabeel has been in the role since its launch, having previously been the global head of marketing at LaunchGood, who the GMW is powered by. Nabeel spent the 2010s building his own business, spreading the concept of Muslim-friendly travel experiences, and has been passionate about the growth of the Islamic economy for the past 15 years. Dear listeners, this show today is pre-recorded, so we won't be able to take any live questions, but please feel free to text or WhatsApp your thoughts about the show on 0779 481822, or you can comment on Facebook as well. So, Nabil, coming back to what you've been mentioning about the GMW, mashallah, it has experienced remarkable growth, which is evident from the recent GMW summit held in Doha. But we'll talk a little bit about the Doha one in a while, and that happened in November. But we'll talk about it in a moment. But if you can just tell us, and I know you've already been talking a little bit about the transition and GMW and so on. If you can tell us more about that transition of GMW network from the current state, if you can give us a bit more about that transition, and where we'll talk about where it's going in the future a little bit later, but perhaps where it started and where it is now.
Yeah, I think as I mentioned, there was this need post-COVID for us to have this space where we can collaborate and innovate together. But a little bit more than that, we needed a space where we weren't in silos anymore. So we are obviously a global ummah, but you'll be surprised at how many people are working on the same things in different parts of the world, right? And that's not a bad thing. That's a great thing. It's great that people are, looking at innovating for their individual spaces. I'll give you an example. I was in Hyderabad this summer for the first time that GMW's been there, LaunchGood's been there, and Hyderabad is home. I think this. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's something like 2 million Muslims. In a city of 20 million people, and obviously they have their own challenges at the moment. But it was great to see, the way that all of these Muslim entrepreneurs. There was 100 that joined us, and they were trying to solve problems for that right on their doorstep, right? Because they knew the impact that they could have. So when you look at diasporas like that, and you look at communities like that, we don't have to create something that is going to affect the whole world. Like, we can affect something that challenges the status quo in our own community. And the one thing that we've sort of transitioned through the last 18 months with GMW is not only being able to provide that space, but also being able to bridge resources. So one of the challenges we saw, and I experienced myself as we were developing our brands, is being able to access mentors, being able to access knowledge, being able to access funding. All of these things have been a challenge in 2000s and 2010s, and we're hoping that through key partnerships we're able to do that. This year we launched the first Spark Award, which was in partnership with the Collective Continuum, which is a Muslim-backed philanthropy VC fund. And we didn't even dream that that was going to be something back in Istanbul. But as we started talking with different stakeholders, these opportunities are there. It's just that a lot of people don't know about them. So, for us, if we can bridge those resources and provide access to opportunities to fund an idea, for people to get a bit of coaching from somebody who's been there, who's done it, like that is so valuable. And I would have loved to have that in the early 2010s, but we're hoping that as we grow forward, a lot of these ideas can benefit from the experience that's already out there.
That's great, mashallah. And what you said about the, the resources that you've got out there, the different supports, how can individuals apply, for example, for the Spark Award, for the, all the different things that you have for the not young people, sorry, you tend to say young people, for the change makers? How can they apply to it? If they have an idea, how can they join? Is there a specific time frame?
So the Spark Award this year was the first one, as I mentioned. So it was, we sort of wanted to make it as accessible to people as possible. There was obviously a criteria around it, and you applied via the GMW website. And it was initially an application that you send in your idea, and we gradually whittled it down. So, we had 331 applications from 26 different countries, who all pitching for this, $250,000 investment pot. And that was broken up into $100,000 in terms of a cash investment into your idea, and then the top three would receive $50,000 in pro bono services like branding, consulting, etc. So, all these people coming in together, and we saw all these ideas come through. We whittled them down to 50. We whittled them down to the final 20, and then we finally had the final 8. And those final 8 flew out to Doha. They pitched their ideas live in front of a panel, and then the top 3 were decided at Doha. So for anybody that wants to apply to Sparks 2024, then inshallah we'll be launching that within the next couple of months. So hopefully probably by March, inshallah, by Ramadan, we'll have the next iteration of Sparks 24, and again that's backed by the Collective Continuum. And this year's winner was Ruh from Canada, who is developing a mental health app for Muslims, connecting Muslims with psychologists, counselors, and psychiatrists around the world that are very faith aligned. And but it's incredible the amount of ideas that are out there. So I do urge people, that if you've got an idea, do share it. Do put yourself out there, and you never know what will come of it.
Absolutely, mashallah. And how can, if they want to apply by March, inshallah, is there a website? You said there is an application on the website, right?
Yeah, just keep an eye on the website, gmw.network, or follow us on Instagram at GMW Network. And you can always subscribe to our emailer as well, and we'll keep everybody updated.
That's great, mashallah, because with this show, that's what one of the things that I aim is to, to help the dear listeners and Muslim community, inshallah, to take action to help themselves to be successful, and to help the ummah as well to be successful. So the work that you're doing is something that I'm so passionate about, and inshallah I would love for the dear listeners here, inshallah, to get in touch, to have ideas, and even if they have ideas, to put it forward. And inshallah, you never know, maybe they can be one of the winners or one of the top 50s, inshallah. And regardless, whatever it is, even if they don't, get the support that is out there, there's so many people who started, and mashallah, they've developed so much in their lives. So it's all about coming back to what I mentioned earlier, tying your camels and putting it tawakkul on Allah, making dua, inshallah, Allah will support throughout, inshallah. I'm just going to... Go ahead.
I was just going to follow up there and say that it's not necessarily just about the 100 grams. Like, the final 8, honestly, the final 8 were amazing. They all came out to Doha, and we didn't really know how competitive they were going to be. Obviously, they all wanted to win, but they all wanted each other to succeed, and they all wanted each other to actually win. It was amazing. So, even though there was this obviously the investment element, there's so much benefit in being around other people that can improve your idea or can support your idea. So, I'm super confident that, the final 20, even the final 50 are going to go on and do something amazing. It might not be that particular idea, but, they are the sort of the personalities that will go on and create something in the future. And, just being in and around that network and just having those conversations and creating what we call meaningful connections, which is actually one of the ways that we sort of measure the success of GMW is, the number of meaningful connections that we make between people, or people discover whilst they're at GMW is so important, and sometimes is actually more valuable than the cash itself.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I love what you said there. Although that there was competition, they still wanted each other to win and to be successful, and I love that
Absolutely.
because because subhanallah, our success does not mean that we have to put someone else down or anything like that to be successful
Yeah.
ourselves. We can be successful as an ummah together. So that's amazing. Jazakallah khair. I'm wondering about the Doha Summit, and we'll talk about it if we don't have time before the break, then after the break. But I'm wondering, is it recorded? Is it something that we can have a look at if the listeners want to just watch it? Because that can be inspirational on its own.
So all of our events are in person. We
Mm,
don't have a digital stream at the moment, but that's something that we're looking at in 2024,
mhm,
especially from a content perspective.
mhm.
Alhamdulillah, we've been blessed with now nearly 90 to 100 inspiring speakers. And
Mashallah.
one of the reasons that we've kept it in person is because of that. It's a different experience. When you
Yeah,
watch something online, you
yeah,
don't get that. You don't get that sort of
yeah,
I wish I was there sort of vibe.
yeah.
And it's very different listening to somebody like Peter Sanders, who was in Doha, going through his 55-year journey through the lens from photographing the Rolling Stones, and Bob Dylan in the 60s to being the first person to photograph the Hajj,
Yeah.
in later on in his life, and just hearing him and his inspirational story, or somebody like Omar Salha, which probably a lot of listeners probably relate
Mm,
to, with the Open Iftar and the Ramadan Tent project, which has been going on now for a decade, and just listen to his journey, and the
mm,
volunteer system that he has, and the way people come in and welcome all walks of life during Ramadan. To
mm,
create a huge impact in London and cities around the world. So,
mm,
inshallah, we are looking to share a lot of those stories digitally in the
mm.
future. But sometimes just being in and around people, it's a great way to be truly inspired.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's amazing. And definitely, I agree with you where the live experience is very different to just watching it digitally. So, inshallah, you get more people, inshallah, joining for that. Just to quickly remind our dear listeners, is that we have Nabeel Sharif with us on the show today, who's the director of the GMW Network, which is a platform designed to bring together Muslim changemakers looking to collaborate and innovate for the betterment of the humanity. Nabil has been in the role since its launch, having previously been the global head of marketing at LaunchGood, who the GMW is powered by. Nabil spent the 2010s building his own business, spreading the concept of Muslim friendly travel experiences, and has been passionate about the growth of the Islamic economy for the past 15 years. Today's show is pre recorded, dear listeners, so we won't be able to take any questions, but please feel free to text or WhatsApp your thoughts about the show on 07779 481822. Alternatively, you can also comment on Facebook. Nabil, we have about just a minute or just a few minutes before we go for the break. So instead of asking the question about the GMW Doha, because I guess we need a bit more time on that, maybe in a minute, can you tell us where you think GMW or you're planning to go? With GMW in the future, what are the next few steps to spread that or to kind of take it to the next step?
Yeah, I mean, it says it in the name, global. We do want to reach out to Muslims across the world. I think, and I don't mean this in any sort of negative way, but a lot of what we do in terms of Muslim outreach tends to happen in the West, and
Mm,
because a lot of the ideas come from the West, and that's fine and that's cool. We are obviously a minority in a lot of these countries, and that's definitely needed. But
mm,
at the same time, we do want to reach out and share inspiration to Muslims across the world, everywhere from sub-Saharan Africa to Indonesia to the subcontinent. There is so much talent out there that we hear a lot of the times we were 2 billion Muslims across the world, but when you really drill down to it, in the West, we're probably something around, we've worked it out, is around 330 to 350 million in the West. So there's still this huge amount of talent pool that we want to tap into, and if we really truly want to be a united sort of global ummah, then we obviously have to do our level best to try to reach out to those to that talent pool as well. So in next year, inshallah, you'll see a lot more events globally, and we're really looking forward to that.
Inshallah, that's great. Jazakallah khair for that. So, dear listeners, this is Inspire FM Luton on 105.1. Inshallah, we'll begin for the short break, but please don't go away. We've got a lot of amazing content, inshallah, to share from Nabeel, inshallah, regarding the GMW. So, we'll see you shortly, inshallah. Everyone, welcome back to the Arise to Success show. We have Nabeel Shariff with us today, who's the director of the GMW Network, which is a platform designed to bring together Muslim change makers looking to collaborate and innovate for the betterment of humanity. Nabeel has been in the role since its launch, having previously been the global head of marketing at LaunchGood, who the GMW is powered by. Nabeel spent the 2010s building his own business, including Rihala.com, spreading the concept of Muslim-friendly travel experiences, and has been passionate about the growth of the Islamic community for the past 15 years. Nabeel would like our dear listeners to leave the conversation today feeling empowered to be change makers themselves. The GMW is a special collection of people. However, Nabeel believes that it is simply because of the common value alignment, basing their everyday lives on Islamic principles, including empathy, transparency, and building great ideas with ihsan. They would draw upon stories of attendees of GMW, their journey, and how they are making an impact on the world. Dear listeners, today's show is pre-recorded, so we're not taking any live questions, but please feel free to text or WhatsApp your thoughts about the show on 07779 481822. Alternatively, you can comment on Facebook as well. So, Nabeel, before the break, we were discussing, the GMW, the growth of it, where it started, where you're planning for it to go ahead, inshallah, in the future. We talked a little bit about, the transition from where it started to where it is now as well. And inshallah, now we'll be moving to talk about the Doha Summit. So, mashallah, you had that in November. And I was actually looking forward to learning more about the success stories, inshallah, that you've had there. So, if you can tell us more about it, please.
Yeah, so it was a week long. It was on the 12th of November through to the 17th of November. So we literally come off the back of flagship. It's the first flagship we've had, and as I mentioned earlier, it was held at Education City in Doha. And one of the partners that we wanted to bring on board was obviously Collective Continuum, who funded the Spark Award. Which was fantastic, but just to be in the presence of a space where you can really feel like you can collaborate and innovate was really important, and that's kind of the reason we chose Education City, which is also the home of the Qatar Foundation. And the Qatar Foundation is one of the biggest NGOs in the world, and just generally, there's so much interest around Qatar. Coming off the back of the World Cup. Everybody was so interested and curious to find out what this tiny little country was about. One of the opening sessions that we had was all about the World Cup, actually, and we had the head of legacy at the Qatar Foundation, Alexandra Chalet, who told us so many insights into the way that the World Cup was created and the whole point of it. This wasn't created just for the opportunity to host a World Cup. It left a legacy, a 10-year legacy in the making, to encourage people to develop their own personal involvement in sport and the impact that they would have. And the one thing I think with Qatar is that there is, and if anybody's been there, they'll notice that they're very aligned with their values, and that's kind of very much why GMW wanted to be there, because there is this alignment that we all want to create this better world, but at the same time we have this common denominator, which is our Islamic values. And you could be on whichever part of the scale, right? You could be super conservative, you can be, not so, you could be coming into the fold, like you could be on that whole scale, right? But ultimately, you have these ideals that, you are guided by the Quran, by the Sunnah, by the example of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and you want to achieve whatever you want to achieve based on that alignment of values. And it's very similar in Qatar. They really do wear their heart on their sleeve in that sense. And we felt it was the perfect fit. So location wise, fantastic. Inshallah, we're going to be there again next year as our flagship. And I know it's cliche, but you kind of got to be there. So if you're there, you kind of get it, and you have that experience. And we had people coming back and saying, look, I don't want to leave on Saturday. It's like, I don't want to leave these people. I don't want to leave the people that I've met. I want to connect with these people, and that's one of our measures of success. Where we're not, alhamdulillah, we're not, because we're backed by LaunchGood. This is not a capital venture for us, right? LaunchGoods, put the support behind this so that we can go and provide this space for Muslims to shine. And one of our measures of success is to say, well, how much do you miss the people that you were there with? And I mentioned meaningful connections earlier. And what does that mean? That means that how many people do you connect with on a personal, a professional, and a spiritual level during your time at GMW? And I'll give you an insight. It's about 10. Like the average is like people connect with 10 other people there, right? That might not sound a lot, but when you truly think about all of the people that you've got in your phone, right? If you were to just take out your phone, look at a number of contacts, I'm guessing you've probably got hundreds, if not thousands. How many of those are actually meaningful to you?
Yeah.
Right?
That's
How
powerful.
many of those, exactly, right? How many of those have you probably spoken to in the last year?
Yeah.
Right? And there is obviously this characteristic of ours that you keep your family close, and you stay connected. You keep your friends close as well, and the company that you keep is super important. But we live in this digital world, and we drift. I'm guilty of it myself, right? There's so many people in my phone that I think, oh man, I should have, I need to connect with this guy, and it's been so long, and when you do connect, you find out so much about them. So meaningful connections is really important, and that certainly was something that happened at Doha, and at other GMWs as well.
Mashallah, that's amazing, and I love that, mashallah. And in terms of you talked a little bit about LaunchGood, and you've worked as the head of the global head of marketing there. So, and that the GMW is powered by the LaunchGood. So, can you tell us more about this and how LaunchGood supports GMW?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, LaunchGood is a global crowdfunding platform. We basically link amazing charities and amazing causes to people who are looking to support those causes, and it's everything from your charities that you would normally expect, all the way through to personal stories. So recently we had a sister who's been diagnosed with a hereditary disease that unfortunately she lost her siblings to, and she had an opportunity to have a lung transplant in Abu Dhabi, but she needed $300,000 to do it. Obviously, not many of us have that, right? So the power of crowdfunding, within 6 weeks through the LaunchGood platform, we managed to raise that $300,000, and she was able to fly out to Abu Dhabi. And subhanAllah, she got here, and the doctor said, "Oh, you also need a liver transplant."
Oh God, subhanAllah.
Right? Like, it's not only your lungs that we need to replace, or we need to transplant, we also need to, your liver is also in need of it. And she said, how much is that going to cost? And the doctor said, you know what, we'll do it. We've got a donor that is ready. You've come all this way. We'll do the same transplant, and it's no additional cost. So, you know what, one of the great things about the Ummah is how generous we are. But what we don't sometimes realize is that how our generosity creates this butterfly effect for people all the way down the line, right? We all go through this in our lives where you just think, hang on a minute, if I didn't do this, then this wouldn't have happened, and that wouldn't have happened, right? So we truly have this belief that Allah is the best of planners, because we can't see that far forward. We didn't know that doctor was going to say, we'll do the transplant with at no additional cost, which is unusual for here. It's unusual for Abu Dhabi. So it's one of the greatest things I think with the way that LaunchGood sets up is that we want to transfer a lot of the goodwill that is generated into other projects. And we actually have something at LaunchGood called LaunchGood Labs. So we actually work on lots of different projects where it's not our core business, but we work on these projects to see if there is a need for it. And GMW is one of those projects. So alhamdulillah, we'll see what happens in the future.
Inshallah. And subhanAllah, when you said about the sister, I was like, subhanAllah, may Allah grant her quick recovery, inshallah, and I hope, inshallah, that she gets better soon. And it was so beautiful to see what you said about the doctors just saying, we'll just do it. And that to see is, as you said, it's not very, it's quite unusual, but to see that, it gives a lot of hope. So, inshallah, may Allah make us means as well of supporting one another. So, you still working for LaunchGood, or you just focusing on the GMW now?
No. I'm officially a LaunchGooder. We're a big team. Just GMW is part of LaunchGood, but I don't. I'm not personally involved in the crowdfunding elements any longer. GMW is a full time role in the sense that there is a lot that we need to achieve, and going into next year. As I mentioned, we want to increase the number of events that we are planning around the world. We're actually, just this year, we had 18 events where, inshallah, we're looking to go up to 25 events next year. We've managed to create nearly 4,000 of those meaningful connections. We've had nearly 1,000 people attend events. We've even had 2 weddings that's happened out of it as well. So, people are... connecting on lots of different levels. So, we inshallah, we're looking to take this to the next stage. And anybody that wants to be involved, just to sort of allay any sort of misconceptions that this is just for entrepreneurs, it isn't. We've got people who are attending who are students, who are in, their first, second, third years of university. And we've got people who are CEOs of companies that have, and they're semi-retired. So, that whole spectrum means that everybody can share their experiences, but also they can learn from each other. And that's super important. So, it's not just for entrepreneurs. It's not just for a certain type of person. If you're looking to learn from others, if you're also looking to share what you can offer as well, which is super important, then it's a space for you. And like I said, there is that value alignment. We build with ihsan in everything that we do. That's part of the LaunchGood way. We want to instill barakah in everything that we do. A good friend of ours, Muhammad Faris, from The Productive Muslim. If anybody hasn't read his book, go and read it. It's just a great way to not only set up an organizational business, but how to organize your life, with barakah instilled in it. So it's building with ihsan, going about your life that instills and tracks barakah, are 2 of the most sort of key characteristics I would like to sort of instill at any GMW or LaunchGood initiative.
Inshallah, that's great. Jazakallah khair for that. Going slightly away from Launch Good and GMW to talk a little bit about your inspiration. Tell us about one person who's your inspiration and why.
Oh, I don't really have one person.
Uh,
I'll be honest with you. I think I take a lot of inspiration from lots of different experiences that people have. Personally, I've been inspired by so many people that's come through GMW, just at the most recent sort of times. Um, and I can give examples from people who have gone through sort of personal journeys, all the way through to people who have created um, professional experiences that just some of the stories you hear are just great to listen to. I mentioned Peter Sanders earlier. He's super inspirational in terms of his photography journey. I'm currently re-listening the autobiography of Malcolm X. And if anybody hasn't listened to that, go listen to it or go read it. Because when you really sort of look at resiliency and you look at the challenges that humans go through, it's a great example of never giving up. That Allah is always looking after you if you're remembering Him. And even in Malcolm's early days, he sort of reflects and says, Allah was always watching him, right? Even in his worst days, right? And it's just an incredible reminder that we're here for a transitionary period of time, but during that time, like we can do so much. And the one thing I want everybody to sort of walk away with, and I say this at the beginning of every single GMW, is that you all have something to offer. You all have an incredible value. What that value is for you to determine. And never give up on finding that. And it's especially important for our younger audience as well. So many kids sort of say, well, what am I going to do when I grow up? Right? I've got a 9-year-old daughter. She says the same thing. Like, what am I going to do when I grow up? And you know what? It doesn't matter what you do, but as long as you do it to the best of your ability, and as long as you're doing something that is aligned with your beliefs and make your intention that you want to do it for the betterment of others as well, as developing your own personal gains, which is super important as well. So I think it's really important that my inspiration comes from lots of different places. Some people might have somebody that they really want to learn about, and they're their inspiration, but however it comes, like I said, everybody has an amazing amount of value to offer to the world.
Oh, that's great, mashallah. And I tend to like to ask this question at times because when I see somebody doing mashallah so well in their lives in terms of even their intentions and where they're going moving forward, I love to know about their inspiration because that has an impact on how we view ourselves and how we view the world and how we intend to do certain things in our lives. And that's what I aim with this radio show as well, is to be an inspiration for others as well, inshallah, for some of our dear listeners listening here and they get inspired. It could be just one thing that we share, but that could be inspirational for them to take action, inshallah. And I'm just going to remind our dear listeners that we have Nabeel with us on the show today, who's the director of the GMW Network, which is a platform designed to bring together Muslim change makers looking to collaborate and innovate for the betterment of humanity. Nabeel has been in the role since its launch, having previously been the global head of marketing at Launch Good, who the GMW is powered by. Nabeel spent the 2010s building his own business, spreading the concept of Muslim-friendly travel experiences, and has been... Sorry, I missed something. Sorry. The travel experience, and has been passionate about the growth of the Islamic economy for the past 15 years. Dear listeners, this show is pre-recorded, so we're not going to take any live questions, but please feel free to text or WhatsApp your thoughts about the show on 07794818222, or you can also comment on Facebook as well. So, Nabil, just a while ago, you were talking about the young people thinking about what am I going to do? What am I, what shall I, what can I do in the future? I'm wondering, you as a person growing up as well, is it something that you ever questioned, or what was your? Did you have any thoughts about what you're going to do? Was the GMW ever in your mind at that time? If you can tell us a little bit about that.
The GMW wasn't in my mind 2 years ago. The when I was growing up, I was fascinated by ancient history. Like I wanted to be an archaeologist when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I remember watching all these different cartoons and stuff like where on earth is Carmen San Diego, and all these sort of things. And I grew up thinking, well, one day I'm going to go and excavate historic, uh, you know, uh,
Mhm.
sites out in the middle of nowhere. And then I graduated from university and ended up on you know in a basement selling holidays. So you can kind of tell that sometimes you don't quite get where you want to from
Yeah.
those early dreams. But I spent pretty much the whole of the 2010s working in the travel industry. I then went on and started my own travel brands in the early 2010s, and that whole journey it has led me to where we are today. Because without that experience, I wouldn't have understood the challenges that entrepreneurs and individuals would be facing, not only as just generic entrepreneurs, but Muslim entrepreneurs. And there's a huge difference. I'm myself as well. We're second generation, Muslims born in the UK. We have, alhamdulillah, we do have, opportunities. We do have a voice, and we do have the ability to create spaces for ourselves. And when I started Serendipity and Rahala, there wasn't anything like Muslim friendly travel or that the like. For me, I wanted to encourage people to travel outside of the box. Rather than going to just Dubai or Morocco, go to Japan, go to Argentina, go see this beautiful world that Allah has created. But keep it within your the guidelines of your faith. And I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people out there that wanted to create media channels. Give an example, Duru Plus, which is based out in Singapore. Creating a Netflix for Muslims. There's so many different examples. So I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. I would say that to anybody that's listening, keep them open minds. Opportunities come and go. And if you are an entrepreneur and you do have that entrepreneurial spirit, my one piece of advice is that timing is everything. If you see an opportunity, and be sensible, don't jump into it and spend your life savings on it, unless you're really truly invested in it. But timing is everything, and opportunities, like I said, they're always there. And inshallah, you could be that person that makes that change.
Amazing, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. And you've mentioned that there is, shall I call it, a halal version of Netflix? You mentioned something about it
Yeah,
just now, right?
yeah. I'll be honest with you. And this might sound a little bit controversial, but I don't necessarily feel that we need to create Muslim versions of things,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
The number of people that said to me, "Oh, I want to create a Muslim Facebook." Well, just use Facebook. You're just not going to have the same UX, UI, usability by creating something different.
yeah.
But what is important is being value aligned, as I mentioned.
Yeah.
So Durio Plus, they have content from other distributors, everything from I can't remember some of the kids programs now, but
Yeah.
my daughter's a little bit older than that. But things that you probably watch on mainstream, but they've created technology that's able to edit it so it's suitable for value aligned consumption. And here's the great thing: is that we're seeing these things, these products coming out, and it's not just Muslims that's using it, right? It's people from all walks of life who just don't want to be, having to censor everything that their kids watch manually, and they're just buying into something that's value aligned, and that's a great opportunity for us. People want to be able to live by their ethics rather than be forced something upon them because it's just the best product out there. So, I think it's a great opportunity for us to create world-class products, world-class experiences. And, I'd also like to say that, we don't all have to build unicorns. We don't have to be the next Netflix or the next Airbnb. We can have hundreds and thousands of medium successes, that make an impact on the world. Without sacrificing all of the others that are out there. So I would urge anybody that has those ideas to find a platform and a space that they can discuss it, share it, and see if it's something that they want to explore.
No, that's great. The reason I was asking about this as well is because I know at this current time, there's a lot of boycotting of certain brands and certain things out there. And specifically when it comes to children's programs, and a lot of people, they say, there are these hidden things, messages for the children. So they can have something that is more Islamic or takes out certain aspects that they don't want the children to see instead of sitting there watching the children all the time. Then this could be a great alternative for them. So Jazakallah khair for that. Before we end, so based on your experiences, what guidance would you offer our dear listeners aspiring to be change makers? What actionable steps can they take today to initiate positive change, inshallah?
I look at what I did in my 20s a lot, and I think, man, I've wasted some time there. It's like, one of the things I felt that I probably learned the most was during my 20s. And if anybody's sort of coming out of university and, you don't need to know exactly what you want to do, get involved with as much as you can. There's absolutely a space for, the professional scene. A lot of people, will go into the in the medical scene or the legal scene, or the finance scene. That's cool. That's absolutely cool. But even then, I come across a lot of people who, have, side hustles, or they, are developing things on the side. If anybody knows the Pillars app, it's created by a brother who is actually an MD. He's a doctor. His full-time job is a doctor, but he's created this app, that for me is just incredible UX and UI. It's simple. When it came out, it was brilliant. And it just means that you don't necessarily have to go all in to one particular thing. We live in a world now where you can learn how to code on YouTube, right? Yeah. You can learn how to do so many different things, through the technology that's available to you. So utilize that, because we've never been in a space where technology has been so pivotal to not only our learning, but our progress. And, if you just, take that time to do that, sleep less, do more. So you can sleep later. Okay, so it's a great time to be able to have exposure to learning, and experimenting. And don't be afraid to experiment. Like, just try it. Like, what's the worst that can happen?
Absolutely. Jazakallah khair. This has been amazing, and the whole of the show has been really, really great. So Jazakallah khair for all that you've shared.
Thank you so much.
And thank you. And thank you so much as well for accepting our invite to be here. Dear listeners, I hope inshallah that you've benefited, and inshallah you get involved in the next few months, inshallah, with the GMW by sending your ideas, and you never know, inshallah, where it goes. Jazakallah khair again. Jazakallah khair, dear listeners. Do stay tuned, dear listeners. Our show is every Monday, 6 to 7. So inshallah, we'll see you next week. Jazakallah khair, Nabeel. Assalamu alaikum.